The morning rain hadn't stopped for 3 days. A man in a torn coat stepped off the curb, pushing a cart that wasn't his. Shoes split at the seams. A cap pulled low. Eyes sharp, but quiet. He stood outside Marley's diner, watching people laugh through the window. No one looked at him, only through him. Inside, the manager barked orders over the hiss of a grill. Outside, the man waited, as if timing something. He didn't beg. He didn't move. When he finally walked in, the bell above the door rang like an alarm. Customers turned. "Sir, we don't serve," the manager began. The man's voice was low. "Just coffee," he said. No one knew that within 24 hours, he'd owned the place. The diner smelled of burnt coffee and quiet disappointment. Grease clung to the air like regret, the kind that never washes off. Plates clattered, forks scraped. A neon open 24 hours sign buzzed faintly, flickering between open and pen, like it couldn't decide what it wanted to be. Behind the counter, Rick, the manager, moved like a storm, a man whose authority depended on who was watching. His tie was loose, his smile tighter. He liked control. He liked being seen as a boss in a place no one wanted to work. "Table for needs a refill, Clarissa," he snapped. The waitress, four to something, soft-spoken, tired in the eyes but not in spirit, nodded and hurried past. "Yes, Rick," she said, voice small. He rolled his eyes. Try sounding awake for once. Customers tip people, not ghosts. Clarissa swallowed it, like she'd swallowed worse. At the back booth, 2 teenagers laughed over their phones. At the counter, a trucker picked at his eggs, pretending not to hear the insults that coated every shift like dust. Then the doorbell chimed again. The man in the torn coat walked in, dripping rain, carrying nothing but a paper bag and an old notebook tied with twine. The room stiffened. Rick's nostrils flared. "Hey, you can't bring that stuff in here," he said, gesturing at the cart the man left outside. "It's just me," the man said quietly, "and I'll pay." He moved toward an empty stool near the end of the counter. The diner's chatter dimmed. Clarissa hesitated, glancing at Rick, who shrugged with exaggerated disgust. "Fine. Let him sit. Maybe he'll scare the flies away." A few customers chuckled. The man didn't react. He sat there, carefully, as if he'd been here before. Clarissa brought him water. Her hands trembled slightly from nerves and kindness colliding. "Thank you," he said softly. She smiled, unsure why his gratitude felt heavier than most. "What'll it be?" "Coffee. Black," Rick muttered under his breath, loud enough to sting. Should have asked if he wanted a straw to chew instead. Clarissa's jaw tightened. She poured the coffee anyway. The pot hissed, filling the cup with steam that curled upward like a ghost of dignity. The man took a sip. Slow, reverent. "Good coffee," he said. Rick barked a laugh. "Yeah, sure. Guess it tastes better when it's free. Huh?" The man placed a few coins on the counter. Old, worn, exact. I said I'd pay. For a moment, no one spoke. Rain hammered the windows harder. In the corner booth, a young dishwasher named Lewis peeked out from behind the pass-through. Barely 20, with tired eyes and callous fingers. He'd been working here since his father got sick. He watched the exchange silently, sensing something different about the stranger. Not pity, not fear. Something else. Composure. Rick leaned on the counter, smirking. "You know what? Why don't you drink that outside? You're scaring away the customers." Clarissa flinched. "Rick!" "Don't Rick me, Clarissa. We're running a business, not a shelter." The man lifted his eyes. "Calm. You think kindness costs profit?" Rick froze for half a breath, then scoffed. "I think kindness doesn't pay the rent." A laugh rippled from a nearby booth. The man nodded, almost amused. "Maybe you've been charging the wrong people." Lewis hid a grin behind the sink. Clarissa tried not to smile. Rick's face turned red. "Get out before I call someone to make you." The man looked at him for a long moment, not angry, just disappointed. He reached for his notebook, his thumb tracing the twine around it, as if it held a history no one else could see. Finally, he stood. "Thank you for the coffee." He left a folded bill under the cup. Clarissa caught a glimpse, $100 note, crisp, dry despite the rain. Rick didn't notice. He was too busy celebrating his authority. Good riddance, he muttered. Next time I'll lock the door. Clarissa sighed, wiping the counter where the man had sat today. The seat was still warm. Lewis whispered from the kitchen, "Who was that guy?" She shook her head. "Someone who didn't belong here," she said quietly. But deep down, she wasn't sure if she meant him or everyone else. Outside, the man paused at the curb. He looked back at the diner's glowing sign, half-lit, half-broken. Then he pulled out an old phone, its screen cracked but alive. He typed one message, "Proceed at dawn," and walked into the rain. The storm passed overnight, but Marley's diner still smelled like rain and burnt pride. By morning, the world had moved on, except the people inside. Same cracked booths, same clinking plates, same low hum of quiet desperation. Rick arrived late, as always. Hair slicked back, tie crooked, pretending to be important in a place that paid him just enough to stay cruel. "All right, people," he shouted, tossing his jacket over the counter. "Let's pretend we like our jobs. Breakfast rush in 10. Clarissa was already there. She'd come early, not for the pay, but for peace. The diner before dawn was gentle. Before Rick. Before noise. She was wiping down the counter when Lewis came out of the back, carrying a box of frozen patties. His apron was stained, his eyes bleary. He'd barely slept. "Morning," he said quietly. She smiled faintly. "Morning, kid. Long night." He nodded. Mom's fever again. Clarissa's hand paused. "She'd get the medicine." Lewis shook his head. "Can't afford the refill till Friday." Before she could answer, Rick clapped his hands. "Hey, love birds, less talk, more toast." Clarissa turned away, biting back a retort. She'd learned the price of speaking up here. Then the doorbell jingled, and the diner fell silent. The man from yesterday stepped inside again. Same coat, same calm. But something was different, a quiet gravity, like the air bent around him. Rick's face twisted. "You again? You've got some nerve." Clarissa froze. Lewis's eyes widened. The trucker from the counter glanced up, whispering, "Oh boy." The man nodded politely. "Good morning." Rick stepped forward. "I told you yesterday, no handouts, no charity, no free rides." "I didn't come for any of that," the man said. His voice was calm but carried weight. "I came for breakfast." Rick laughed. Loud. Mean. "You're kidding me." The man didn't move. "Table by the window, please." Rick turned to Clarissa, grinning. "You hear that? Our guest wants a view." The laughter around the diner stung. Clarissa hesitated, then whispered, "Rick, maybe just." "No, you want a view." Rick said, motioning to the window. "Fine, go ahead, sit, but you eat what I say you eat, and you pay first." The man reached into his coat and placed a folded note on the counter. Rick snatched it up, expecting crumpled change. It was another $100 bill. The diner went quiet. Lewis's jaw dropped. Rick blinked, trying to process it, then barked a nervous laugh. "Counterfeit. Has to be." Clarissa whispered, "Rick, that's real." Rick ignored her. "Sit down. Sure. Let's see how long you last." The man walked slowly to the window booth, sat down, watched the rain streak the glass. He didn't look angry, just tired, like he'd seen this movie too many times before. Lewis leaned toward Clarissa. "Why does he come back here? After how Rick treated him?" She didn't answer, because deep down, she was asking herself the same thing. The morning rush began. Orders flew. Plates clattered. Rick barked commands like a general in a losing war. But the man stayed still, sipping water, flipping open that same worn notebook. From time to time, he'd look up, at the ceiling, at the people, at the framed Employee of the Month photo, Rick's face plastered under fluorescent glare. Something about his gaze made everyone else uneasy. Finally, Rick marched over. "Enjoying your imaginary breakfast." The man looked up. "I ordered coffee." Rick smirked. Oh, we ran out. Guess you'll have to wait till next month's donation drive. Lewis winced from the kitchen. Clarissa whispered, Rick, enough. He spun on her. You're defending him? Again? He's done nothing wrong. Rick's tone darkened, except make the place look like a soup line. A few customers chuckled awkwardly, the kind that means guilt, not humor. Clarissa took a breath. That's enough. Rick turned, voice rising. You don't tell me what's enough. Clarissa, you barely do your job. Her face flushed. I do my job. Yeah? Then clean that table before I find someone who can. Lewis muttered under his breath. Then maybe find someone who can manage. Rick spun. What did you say, kid? Lewis froze. Clarissa stepped between them. Rick, leave him. Both of you, Rick snapped, out of my face before I... Excuse me. The voice cut through the room like a calm blade. The man in the coat stood now. Don't speak to them like that. Rick turned slowly. Excuse me. The man's tone didn't rise. It didn't need to. I said, don't speak to them like that. The silence that followed was heavy. Everyone felt it. Even the air conditioner seemed to hold its breath. Rick laughed once, the nervous kind that pretends to be power. Oh, I get it. You think you're some kind of hero. You think this is your story. The man's eyes didn't waver. No, he said softly. I think it's ours. Rick stepped closer, chest puffed. You think you can just walk in here, dress like that, and tell me how to run my place? The man tilted his head. You call this running? Lewis's heart pounded. Clarissa stood frozen. Rick pointed toward the door. Get out, now. The man didn't move. Rick looked at the truck at the counter. You want a free meal? Help me throw this guy out. The trucker looked away. No one moved. That's when the narration whispered through the silence. No one helped. No one even looked up, because kindness had become too expensive. The man nodded slowly, as if confirming something he already knew. He picked up his notebook. The twine came loose. Inside were names, notes, dates. Clarissa caught sight of one line written in neat, deliberate ink. Marley's Diner, assessment pending. She blinked. Assessment? The man met her eyes, and for the first time, smiled. A small, knowing smile. Almost sad. Rick rolled his eyes. Assessment? What are you, a health inspector? The man turned to him. No. Rick sneered. Then what? I build places, the man said quietly. Places like this. Only different. Rick laughed. Yeah, right. You? Build? With what? Hope and spare change. The man nodded, eyes distant. Something like that. He slipped the notebook back into his coat, dropped a few more folded bills on the table, and walked to the door. Before stepping out, he said, You'll see me again tomorrow. Rick smirked. Can't wait. The bell above the door rang as he left. A chill followed him out, or maybe it stayed behind. Clarissa stared after him, whispering to herself, Who are you? Outside, the man pulled out his phone again. This time, the message was longer. Stage 2 confirmed. Prepared documents. Ownership transfer at 9:00 a.m. He slipped the phone away and disappeared down the street, leaving behind a diner full of people who didn't yet know their world was about to change. Morning came again. Cleaner skies, same broken place. Marley's diner glowed faintly under a weak sunrise, the kind that made everything look better than it really was. The world outside was waking up, but inside, something was shifting, the kind of quiet before a storm that doesn't need thunder to make itself known. Clarissa wiped down the counter in silence. Her hands were tired, but her conscience was heavier. She couldn't stop thinking about the man. The way he spoke, calm, deliberate. The way he looked at her when Rick shouted, like he was memorizing something she couldn't see. Lewis noticed too. You think he's coming back? She nodded faintly. Yes. How do you know? Because men like that, she said softly, don't say things they don't mean. At 8:55 a.m., the diner door opened. He walked in again. Same coat, though this time cleaner. Same eyes, quiet, commanding, unhurried. The chatter died instantly. Rick was refilling the soda machine when he noticed him. His mouth curled into a grin that had nothing to do with humor. Well, if it isn't Mr. Moneybags. Back for round 3. The man nodded. Coffee and breakfast, if the kitchen allows it today. Rick laughed, loud and performative. Oh, we allow it. Just not sure you can afford it. The man set a folded bill on the counter without looking up. Another 100. Rick stopped laughing. You think flashing big bills makes you special? No, the man said quietly. I think how you treat people does. Clarissa's breath caught. Lewis looked at Rick, waiting for his temper to blow. Rick leaned in, smirking. Let me tell you something, old man. The world's full of people who deserve better. But guess what? Deserve doesn't pay rent. Deserve doesn't pay staff. The man tilted his head. Then maybe your problem isn't who deserves better. Maybe it's what you think people are worth. Rick slammed a plate down hard enough to crack it. Out! Now, before I make a scene. The man smiled faintly. You already have. A few customers turned to watch. A mother with her child whispered, Don't stare, sweetie. Lewis took a deep breath and stepped forward from the kitchen window. Rick, come on. He's just eating. Rick spun. You too. Huh? You want to join your new friend on the curb? Clarissa wiped her hands, voice trembling. Stop it, Rick. Stop what? Running a diner, he snapped. You think kindness keeps the lights on? This isn't a church, it's a business. The man's voice was low but carried through the room. Then maybe it's time it became both. Rick blinked. What's that supposed to mean? The man reached into his coat, pulling out that same notebook. He flipped it open, this time on purpose. The pages were clean except for a single signature across the last line. Do you know who owns this building, Rick? Rick frowned. Yeah, some investment group out of the city. Marley Holdings. Why? The man nodded. That's me. The room fell silent. Rick laughed, short and disbelieving. You? You're Marley Holdings. The man didn't answer. He simply opened his phone and held up a message, the one from yesterday. Ownership transfer at 0900. It was 9:01. Clarissa gasped. Lewis froze. Rick's laughter cracked. You're lying. The man turned his phone toward him, an email glowing on the screen. Transfer complete. Marley's Diner, Asset 442A. Rick's hand trembled. What is this? The man placed his phone on the counter, calm as rain. Yesterday, I walked in here looking for coffee. Today, I own this place. The diner went utterly still. Even the neon sign outside seemed to stop flickering. Clarissa whispered, You bought it? He nodded once. Yes. Why? He looked around the diner, at the cracked tiles, the tired faces, the quiet tension that lived here, because places like this deserve better than the people running them. Rick's voice cracked. You can't do this. I already did. Rick stepped closer, trying to reclaim control. You set me up. You came here to humiliate me. The man shook his head slowly. I came here to see you. See me? Rick barked. For what? You don't know what it's like to scrape by. The man interrupted, his tone soft but sharp. I know exactly what it's like. I started in a place just like this, scrubbing dishes, sleeping in my car between shifts. The only difference is someone gave me a chance. Clarissa's eyes welled up. Rick opened his mouth, but no words came. Lewis whispered, So what happens now? The man looked toward the kitchen door, then back to Clarissa. That depends on what kind of people want to stay. Rick's voice rose again, desperate now. You can't fire me. You can't just walk in here and... The man raised a hand, quieting him without force. Rick, he said gently, I don't fire people. They fire themselves. Then he reached into his coat pocket and pulled out a small keychain, 2 silver keys, slightly rusted. He placed them on the counter. These were my father's. He ran a diner until he died behind the grill. When I lost him, I promised I'd build places where people could work with dignity. Places where decency mattered as much as a dollar. Clarissa's lip trembled. And you think this place can become that? He nodded. If the people inside wanted to. Rick's hand shook. You don't get it. You can't just change everything overnight. The man's eyes softened. No, but I can start. He walked toward the office door. Rick's office. The one with the broken lock and the flickering light. He paused, glanced back at Clarissa, and handed her his notebook. Hold on to this, he said, until I'm back. Inside the notebook, pressed between 2 pages, was a small photo, a young man behind a diner counter, smiling beside an older cook. At the bottom, in faded ink, were the words, "Every table tells a story. Make sure yours matters." Clarissa ran her thumb over the words. Lewis whispered, "He's really doing this, isn't he?" She nodded. "Yeah, he is." Rick slumped against the counter, eyes wide, pride broken. The man re-emerged a moment later with a file under his arm. Contracts, inspection papers, financials. He placed them on the counter. "I've already called the health department and labor board. They'll be here soon." Rick blanched. You can't." "I'm not here to punish," the man said quietly. "I'm here to rebuild. But truth is to come first." He turned to leave, but paused by Clarissa. "You stood up when it mattered," he said. "You'll see what that means soon." She looked down, overwhelmed. "What happens to him?" she asked softly, glancing at Rick. The man sighed. "He'll face the same thing we all do eventually." A pause. The cost of forgetting our humanity. He walked to the door. Outside, a black sedan pulled up. 2 figures in suits stepped out, quiet, efficient, deliberate. Rick's breath caught. "What? Who are they?" The man toned, meeting his eyes one last time. "You'll find out soon enough." He stepped outside. The doorbell chimed behind him, soft, final. The suits entered, showing credentials. The diner fell silent. And just like that, everything they thought they knew about their world began to crumble. The bell above the door gave one last tired ring as the suits stepped inside. 2 of them, black coats, composure like marble. One carried a folder. The other, a tablet glowing faint blue. Every sound in the diner seemed to vanish, except the tick of the wall clock. 9:07 a.m. Rick froze behind the counter. Clarissa stood rigid, Lewis half hidden by the kitchen door. The taller official spoke first, voice calm but crisp. "Good morning. We're here on behalf of the new ownership group, Marley Holdings." Rick stammered. "There's been some mistake. I'm the manager here." The official nodded politely. "Yes, you are. For now." He opened the folder. Inside, inspection reports, payroll records, photos. Clarissa's breath caught. She'd seen those forms before. Half completed. Ignored. The official continued. "Our preliminary audit began last week. Worker complaints, unpaid overtime, and a falsified health inspection certificate filed under your name, Mr. Rick Delaney." Rick's mouth fell open. That's not possible. Who told you that?" The official's gaze didn't waver. Evidence did. The room stayed quiet. Only the hum of the fridge filled the space between words. Rick stepped back, panic rising in his throat. I didn't know. I swear, it must have been the old owner." The official raised a hand. Mr. Marley was the old owner. He's also the new one. Rick blinked. "What?" Clarissa whispered. "He met the man from yesterday." The official nodded. "Mr. Elias Marley, founder of Marley Holdings, acquired this establishment as of this morning." Lewis's heart thudded. Clarissa's hand trembled, still holding the notebook. The second official added quietly, he left instructions. Immediate review, full staff interviews, temporary closure pending correction of violations. Rick swallowed hard. "You can't close me down." The taller official corrected him gently. "Sir, we're not closing you down. We're closing the diner. What happens to you depends on what we find." Rick turned toward the window, desperate. The street outside glowed with morning light, and across the road, there he was, the man in the coat, standing beneath the lamppost, calm, watching, no anger, no gloating, just stillness. Rick's shoulders sagged. He mouthed something toward the window, maybe an apology, maybe disbelief. The man simply nodded once, like he'd already forgiven him. Clarissa felt something rise in her chest. Not joy, not victory. Something quieter. Relief mixed with sorrow. The official turned to her. "Miss Clarissa, you've worked here the longest, yes?" She nodded nervously. 10 years. He handed her a page from the folder. "Your name was mentioned in Mr. Marley's notes." She frowned. "Mine?" "Yes, under integrity check." Her eyes filled. "Integrity?" He smiled faintly. "He said you were the kind of person who does the right thing, even when no one's watching. He wants you to stay on, temporarily oversee the staff during renovations." Clarissa covered her mouth, whispering, "Oh my God." Lewis grinned from behind the counter, whispering, "Told you he wasn't just some stranger." Rick staggered back, mumbling, It can't be real. He tricked me, pretended to be one of them." The official closed the folder gently. "Maybe he was reminding you that how we treat people we think are below us is more than how we treat those above." Rick had no answer. His lips moved, but nothing came out. The officials gathered their papers. "We'll notify everyone of next steps by noon," one said. "Mr. Marley will return tomorrow to make an announcement." And with that, they left. The bell chimed again, this time soft like an exhale. Outside, Elias Marley turned and walked down the block. A few children waved from a school bus. He waved back. No driver, no cameras, just a man who won scrub plates, now rebuilding what the world forgot how to value. Inside, Clarissa placed a notebook gently on the counter. Its pages fluttered in the breeze from the open door, stopping at a line written halfway down a page. Justice doesn't arrive with noise. It walks in quietly, sits down, and asks for coffee. She smiled through tears. Lewis leaned over her shoulder. "He really wrote that." She nodded, and he meant it. Rick sat in silence at the corner booth, staring at the $100 bill still taped to the receipt holder, untouched, undeniable. He whispered, "He gave me a chance, and I threw it away." Clarissa turned, voice gentle but steady. "Then maybe start by taking it back. Not from him, from yourself." The clock ticked louder now. The diner, though half-broken, felt different, lighter somehow. A place waiting for new hands to rebuild it. A story mid-sentence. A man in a torn coat rewriting what power looks like. And outside, as the clouds parted, the sun caught the diner's old sign. For the first time in years, all the letters flickered back on, open. By noon, the diner was empty. No sizzling, no clatter, just silence and the smell of bleach. A temporarily closed for inspection, sign hung crooked in the window. Outside, townspeople slowed as they passed, whispering. Inside, truth had already started doing its work. 2 inspectors moved through the kitchen methodically, clipboards in hand, voices low. Each note they took was a mirror. Expired meat. Clock-out sheets altered. Tip wages are misplaced. Clarissa followed them, answering quietly, trembling but firm. Lewis helped, hauling boxes, showing receipts. Every page they turned was a page of Rick's control unraveling. Rick sat at the counter, head in his hands. He'd traded dignity for dominance, and now both were gone. Every question cut deeper. Did you authorize this deduction? Yes. Did you falsify the certificate? I did. No shouting, no anger, just paperwork, signatures, and silence. When they were done, one inspector handed him a notice. Administrative leave pending investigation. Rick stared at it. Am I going to jail? The inspector sighed. That depends on what you do next. Cooperate. Tell the truth. Maybe you rebuild something honest. Rick nodded, voice small. I don't even know how to start. Clarissa, standing nearby, said softly, start by saying sorry, and meaning it. He looked up at her, eyes wet. That afternoon, Elias Marley returned. No coat this time, just a plain shirt, sleeves rolled, the weight of a builder rather than a boss. Everyone stood when he walked in. Clarissa, Lewis, 2 dishwashers, even Rick. Elias looked around at the quiet chaos. Honesty, he said, always leaves a mess before it leaves a mark. He placed new contracts on the counter. Health benefits, fair pay, a code of dignity written in plain language. No one here loses their job for telling the truth, he said, but everyone stays accountable for what they've done. He turned to Rick. You built fear here. I can't reward that, but I can offer work if you're willing to learn humility. Rick swallowed hard. You'd still let me work? Elias nodded. Scrub the floors, wash the dishes, start where I started. See if you still want to lead after that. Rick nodded slowly, relief and shame tangled in his throat. Clarissa blinked back tears. Lewis grinned, whispering, That's how you fix people. Not fire them, rebuild them. Elias smiled faintly. Exactly. Word spread fast. The diner that once pushed people away was becoming a symbol of something rare, reform without spectacle. Local press arrived, expecting a scandal. They found humility instead. Cameras caught Rick on his knees, scrubbing tile beside Lewis. Clarissa wiping menus, Elias hauling trash. The headline that night read, Billionaire reopens diner, teaches kindness as company policy. Within days, other small businesses called. They wanted training, partnerships, guidelines. Elias's quiet gesture was rippling outward, not as charity, but as proof that decency scales. 1 week later, the labor board posted the findings. Violations confirmed. Penalties were reduced in exchange for full restitution. Every unpaid hour funded. Every falsified record was corrected. Rick signed each check personally, shaking. Feels different paying people for real, he said. Elias replied, That's because now it costs what it's worth. He didn't gloat. He didn't smile. He just handed Rick a mop and said, Keep going. Clarissa was promoted to operations lead, the soul of the new diner. Lewis received a scholarship from Marley Holdings to attend culinary school. The suits vanished back into anonymity. The inspectors closed their files. And Elias? He spent mornings at the corner booth, the same one where it all began. Drinking coffee, listening, learning. Sometimes, customers recognized him from the news. Most didn't. He preferred it that way. The sign outside stayed simple. Marley's, open 24 hours. Open to everyone. Justice didn't look like punishment. It looked like people were doing better once they knew better. Elias watched Rick sweep the floor one evening and said quietly, Funny thing about power, you only know how heavy it is after you put it down. Rick nodded. Never thought kindness would be harder than control. It is, Elias said, but it lasts longer. Outside, night lights glowed on the wet street. The reflection in the window showed them both, past and future, side by side. Kindness doesn't need a reminder. It speaks before excuses do. Morning light spilled through the diner windows like forgiveness finding its way in. For the first time in months, the place smelled like hope, butter on the griddle, cinnamon in the air, coffee fresh and kind. The sign on the door read, Grand Reopening, Community Day. Everyone eats. No questions asked. And just like that, the old diner, the one built on fear and shortcuts, became something new. A week of work had transformed the place. The cracked tiles were replaced by reclaimed wood. The flickering open sign now glowed steady blue. Even the walls seemed to breathe easier. Lewis, sleeves rolled up, flipped pancakes with a grin. You ever think we'd see this? He said to Clarissa. She smiled, eyes glinting with pride. I used to dream about it, but not like this. Behind her, Rick was at the sink, scrubbing without complaint. Each dish he cleaned seemed to rinse something heavier off his shoulders. Elias sat quietly at the corner booth again. Same navy cap, same calm stillness. Only now, everyone knew who he was. And somehow, that made them treat him with more humanity, not less. At 10 o'clock, the first wave of customers came in. Truckers, students, an elderly couple, a mother with 2 kids. No one was turned away. Clarissa greeted each with the same warmth. Welcome home. The phrase spread like an anthem. By noon, the diner was full. The laughter was real this time, not forced, not fearful. Rick approached Elias quietly. Sir, I wanted to thank you for not giving up on me when everyone else should have. Elias looked up from his coffee. I didn't give up. I just gave you the mirror you've been avoiding. Rick swallowed hard. I'll keep earning this chance. Then it's already working, Elias said. Over the next weeks, the diner became a kind of living classroom. Posters went up on the walls. Kindness is company policy. No one eats alone. Respect is free. Give generously. Employees took turns leading morning talks, short 5-minute reflections before shifts began. Lewis spoke about second chances. Clarissa spoke about courage. Even Rick shared one morning, voice shaking. I used to think running a business meant controlling people. Now I think it means listening to them. Everyone applauded, not out of politeness, but pride. Word spread again, but this time for the right reasons. A local school partnered with the diner for free breakfast programs. Job seekers found work experience there, ex-cons, single parents, people others had written off. The diner became a symbol, not of charity, but dignity restored. Elias quietly funded it all through an invisible trust, refusing to take credit. To him, success wasn't a story, it was a seed. A month after the reopening, Elias called Clarissa to the back office. On the desk lay a single envelope with her name written in blue ink. She hesitated before opening it. Inside was a letter and a set of keys. To the woman who reminded this place what kindness sounds like when spoken out loud. The diner's future belongs to someone who never stopped believing in people. You're the new owner. E.M. Clarissa covered her mouth, tears slipping down her cheeks. I don't know what to say. Elias smiled softly. Say what you always say when someone walks in. She laughed through the tears. Welcome home. Exactly, he said. Rick stayed. He didn't have to, but he chose to. He trained under Lewis, learned to cook, and took anger management classes. When new hires came in, he was the first to greet them, humble, quiet, changed. One night after closing, he looked around the diner, the lights dim and soft. It's strange, he said to Clarissa. The place I used to run now runs me, in a good way. She nodded. That's what happens when you stop being the boss and start being part of the story. When everything was steady again, Elias began to fade quietly into the background. No press, no speech, no ceremony. Just a man leaving the world a little better than he found it. He met Clarissa outside one morning, sunrise catching the steam from coffee cups. You don't need me here anymore, he said. She frowned. But we wouldn't have this without you. He shook his head. You had it in you the whole time. I just reminded you. They stood in silence for a moment. Then she asked, Where will you go next? Elias smiled faintly. Wherever people forget what decency looks like. He tipped his navy cap, stepped into the dawn, and walked away, the hum of traffic swallowing his figure like a secret kept by the morning. The neon sign flickered on again that night. Marley's, open 24 hours. Open to everyone. The same booth where a homeless man once sat now held a photo frame. Elias shaking hands with Clarissa and Lewis beneath a sign that read, This place was bought with money, but rebuilt with kindness. And for the first time in a long time, everyone in that little diner finally understood what wealth really meant. Not money, not ownership, but the courage to see people before judging them. Soft piano plays. The diner lights glow low. The last customer leaves. Clarissa wipes the table. Lewis locks the door. Steam rises from the coffee pot. One final breath before quiet. Funny thing about people, they'll hold the door for you out of habit, but close their hearts out of fear. They'll preach about kindness on a Sunday and forget it by Monday morning. But somewhere between shame and second chances, we all still want to believe that decency matters. I came here with nothing but a story to test. Whether compassion can survive pride, whether people can still see the soul beneath the dirt. Turns out, some can, and some just need reminding. A shot of Clarissa helping Rick with dishes, both laughing softly. I watched a woman lead with grace when the world told her not to. I watched a man rebuild his character with nothing but soap and regret. And I watched the town realize that wealth isn't measured in what you own, but in who you lift when they fall. Montage: Lewis flipping pancakes for a child, the diner sign glowing open to everyone. Money can build walls, but it can also build tables. And if you're lucky enough to have more than you need, then you're lucky enough to start over. Not for yourself, but for someone else. I didn't buy a diner. I bought a chance. For them. For me. For all of us to remember what a human looks like. Kindness isn't a brand. It's not a headline or a hashtag. It's a quiet thing. A choice made when no one's watching. The kind of wealth that can't be stolen, taxed, or traded. He steps outside. The morning breeze catches his cap. The world is waking again. When you see wrong, do you stay quiet or do you stand up? Because silence protects the comfortable. But kindness rebuilds the world.